First, the headline.
We are now on day 3 of responding to the worst tornado event in the history of our Commonwealth. Our state was hit by at least 4 tornadoes. One stayed on the ground in Kentucky for at least 200 miles, devastating anything in its path.
That was Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear at a press conference earlier this morning, giving an update on the situation in his state after a series of tornadoes tore through Kentucky and several other states in the Midwest and South over the weekend. Joining me now to give us his assessment of the situation is Kentucky Congressman James Comeau, who represents the 1st Congressional District in the Bluegrass State, which was the region hit hardest by the tornadoes. Representative Comeau, welcome back to the program. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
I know that your district specifically was one of the hardest hit areas in the state, which was one of the hardest hit states in the region. We've seen a lot of footage. What are you seeing on the ground?
You know, the footage doesn't do it justice. Until you see the devastation up close and personal, it's hard to comprehend. This is the 3rd day. I'm in my Paducah office now. We've been trying to work the phone lines to help with people getting them connected with FEMA, but I'm momentarily going to head back down to Mayfield. It's just devastation like we've never seen. The shock has worn off, and now people are trying to figure out how to clean up and how to rebuild and get their lives back to normal. But unfortunately, it's going to be a long, hard process.
Have you ever seen anything like this before?
I have not. We have tornadoes come through Kentucky. We have tornadoes that travel 100 miles at a time. But the difference in this tornado and every other tornado in my lifetime is the width of this tornado. If you'll remember, you always see stories of a tornado going through and hitting one side of the street, but then the other side's left unharmed. So that path would be a very narrow path. But what we have in Mayfield and Dawson Springs and all these communities is the width of the tornado was as wide as 3.5 miles. So it's taken out blocks and blocks and blocks, miles of radius around these populated cities, and it's just unbelievable the damage. I mean, you've never seen anything like it.
What is the status of the recovery situation right now?
Well, we're still hopeful, obviously, that there are some people that are unaccounted for that we can find. Right now, there are nearly 100 people still unaccounted for in my congressional district. The cadaver dogs are going through any property that they haven't already gone through. Remember, there are over 1,200 homes that have been destroyed, completely destroyed in my congressional district. 1,200 scattered over, probably 150 miles of property. So, it takes a long time to go over. We've flown drones over to try to identify homes in rural areas that, didn't receive the attention within the first 24 hours. But we've got those dogs out and just trying to find any hope of life. So, the sad part is when the tornado hit, it was in the low 60s temperature-wise. Last night, it got down to about 22 degrees. So the last 2 nights, the temperature has been very, very cold. So, there's still a chance, there's still a hope. The whole world's praying for the families and the victims in this tornado, and we can't give up hope. But, the clock's ticking, and every second counts now.
And you mentioned the number of houses that have been displaced. There are power issues that we're hearing reports of people not having water for those whose houses were not destroyed. How are those who may not have lost their house, or even those who did, how are people being sheltered now?
It's tough. We're relying on neighbors. There are shelters set up. There are Red Cross shelters. Every church that's left standing has offered shelter. So the people temporarily have been taken care of. The problem is, as you mentioned, water is out all over these counties, even in areas that weren't affected by the tornado. Power is out in entire counties, all up and down my congressional district. Tens of thousands of people are still without power. And again, it's in the 20s at night, and we have a lot of elderly population here. So the hospitals are all operating on generators, which is never good, never safe. So it's a lot of challenges. The sewer system is completely destroyed in Mayfield beyond repair. 2 water tanks were taken out. 3 cell phone towers were taken out. It's just devastation like we've never seen. A post office was completely destroyed. A lot of people who depend on getting their medicine in the mail has been disrupted. So we're trying to get the mail rerouted from Mayfield to Paducah. It's a big series of challenges, but the people are resilient down here. Very faithful population down here. Everyone's praying and hoping for the best.
How wide or how big is that area? We've seen individual towns that have been destroyed, and that footage is terrifying if we think about that in our own homes. But how big is the overall affected area? How many towns have been affected?
I would say in my congressional district, there are 15 or 16 towns and communities that have had extensive damage. Now, remember that line went up through every little community in Kentucky. But another difference in this tornado and others is that tornadoes are narrow, and they go through mostly rural farmland or woods or things like that. The path of this tornado just happened to go straight through about 10 pretty good sized towns in Western Kentucky. And it completely took out the businesses, the downtown areas, whole subdivisions, residential areas. It's just unbelievable. I mean, you cannot imagine what Mayfield looked like before compared to what it looks like now. The people in Mayfield had spent a lot of money reinvigorating their downtown, reinvesting in the downtown. They had just gotten all their Christmas decorations up. It looked like a town in a Hallmark movie on Christmas, but now it looks like a war zone. It looks like somewhere in Afghanistan or somewhere that had just been bombed. It's heartbreaking.
We're talking to Representative James Comer from Kentucky, who is it represents the 1st district there, one of the most hardest hit areas in the state of Kentucky and in the country from the tornadoes over the weekend. Representative Comer, I know your office is fielding a lot of calls. You are trying to be helpful. You're doing what you can. What are you hearing from the communities, from the people who are affected? How are they responding? How is this affecting them?
Well, we're getting more calls from people around the state and around the nation that want to help, that are saying, we want to donate food, we want to donate supplies. Can you connect us with this person or that person, which is really, really inspiring. But we're also having calls from a lot of the mayors and county executives saying that we've got to get power back on. When are we going to get power back on? We've been communicating with TVA and the different electric utilities, and unfortunately it may be 20 days in certain parts of Kentucky before they get power back, which we're talking about in the winter during Christmas. So it's a challenge. And then, trying to get the water back on. So we're trying to help navigate the bureaucracy here. We're connecting people with FEMA. We're connecting the dots to try to help people who want to donate with emergency management teams that need donations. So it's just a lot of phone calls in our district offices in Paducah and Tompkinsville.
This program is heard in the areas most affected by the tornadoes. What's your message to them when they're calling you, if they happen to be listening right now? What are people who need help, who have been affected? What can they be doing? What should they be doing right now in order to try to find some assistance?
Well, the local sheriff, the local mayor, the local county executives, they've all been given contact information for FEMA. FEMA is going to be setting up shop in all of these communities. They're there now, but they're going to have a permanent structure in those communities where we're trying to work on temporary housing. Right now, people are staying with their relatives and neighbors, and but that can't last forever. We've got to get temporary housing in. So this is going to be a very long process. This isn't something that's going to be over with in a few days. When all the national TV media leaves my district, the work hasn't even started to begin yet towards recovery. But right now, the most immediate need is obviously trying to rescue anyone who's still under the rubble, and then the next priority, of course, is getting the utilities turned back on. We need power. We need cell service to communicate. We need obviously running water. So that's where the big challenges are. And you can drive down the road and you're going to see utility trucks from about 6 states that have been rolling into Kentucky over the last 3 days to help. And these crews are going 24/7. They're going through the night. And like I said, it got down in the very low 20s last night in the temperature. So nobody stopped. Neighbors are, this is farm country down here. Everybody has a chainsaw and they're out cutting trees off roofs and trying to dislodge vehicles. I mean, everybody's helping everybody down here. And, that's the one bright spot in a terrible, terrible tragedy like this is you see the difference in rural America and many parts of America where people come out and roll their sleeves up and friends help friends and neighbors help neighbors.
Yeah. That is the good part of this. We also, however, have heard reports that in some cases, people are being asked to stay away from the towns so that emergency workers can get in and get relief. For those who are nearby and may feel like they're in a position to help, what are you encouraging them to do?
Yeah, please, if you want to help, call the local mayors and try to let them assign you a place to be and a job to do. A big problem, honestly, is people are driving through Mayfield just wanting to take pictures with their cameras, and and I guess see all the local media. It's never do you see a satellite truck in any of these small towns, and you've got every major network in America is set up shop there, and I think people are curious and they're driving by, and it's really makes it harder for the utility trucks to get in. It delays that, and we really can't afford any delays. So if people want to help, call the local mayors. They're all set up. They have their phone lines open. If they want to see it up close and personal, please just watch TV, because you're in the way, and you would be making things harder for the people who are working and trying to save lives.
Congressman James Comer, our thoughts and prayers with you and everyone in your district and the state of Kentucky, those affected. Thank you so much for your time. Godspeed in your recovery efforts.
Thank you for covering this.